In order to become a good painter, you need to learn to give yourself permission to paint badly or to paint ugly, because that's what teaches you to hone your style until you're doing paintings that you're happy with and satisfied with. It teaches you value and tones and lines and shadows. So don't be afraid to paint ugly and to get out in the windy days where there's lots of traffic to be heard and all of that stuff, which is why I have this mic. I'm hoping it'll kind of muffle some of that stuff. The rooster two doors down, the neighbor revving their car, whatever it is that's stopping you, just it's time to adapt and get out there. We know that painting outside or sketching or doodling actually scientifically has been shown to elevate your mood. And boy, the wind's kicking up now. And it's been shown that just getting outdoors and being outdoors can also raise the dopamine levels and serotonin levels in your brain. And it increases and gives you gains in your physical and mental health. So join me while I show you the very first outdoor painting I ever did, the very first plein air, which is on location painting that I ever did. It was a little over a year ago, and I learned a lot from this little ugly painting. So join with me and we'll talk about it. Hey everybody, out here close to home, I'm practicing. It's going to be the first time I'm using gouache ever, which is an opaque watercolor, and the first time I'm painting outdoors ever, and I'm going to be trying out my kit that I put together. It's a little hot and muggy today, but not like last week here in North Carolina, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to point you down at my sketchbook and hope that it works. Well, I have come decidedly unprepared. I forgot to these are brand new tubes to me. It's brand new painting medium, and I forgot to open them, so I'm just now getting my palette ready. Okay. I forgot to bring my little spray bottles, so I'm going to have to make sure and try to keep them from drying out, even though you can re-wet gouache whenever it dries out. I want to use it as much as I can in its opaque fashion today. But I have 4 brushes, a liner, a wedge, which can also be flat, a filbert, and a regular sort of watercolor brush. That's what I'm using. And then this tree with Okanichi Village in the background, it's a little replica village, is being very slowly and tenderly built here near the Eno River. So I'm going to try to get us a little bit of that scene. So I first painted a blue base on the entire sheet, mainly to get past that fear of staring at a blank piece of paper. The sky was very blue, so anything peeking through the forest might reflect that, including any puddles on the ground. Once I was finished with the blue, I started to use a medium grade green to start creating that wooded background behind the village. I was just dabbing most of it on. I put that little circular arch in there just to give myself a guide of where I'd be painting the foliage in the background. So one mistake that I realized was in not sketching out the composition. I know I just wanted to start slapping paint down and not compose it. And I didn't have a lot of time because my husband had taken the dog for a walk. So I was trying to get it done before they got back from the trail. I treated it like an acrylic painting, which is not the smartest thing to do. This is gouache. It's more of a water-based paint. And sometimes if you don't start with the darkest darks, you end up with a mess with gouache. And that can happen, but also sometimes if you start with darks and have a big wash and start trying to put something lighter over the top, you'll make a mess too because you reactivate that water-based paint below it. So I was just experimenting since it was my first time using gouache at all and dabbing some paint in for that thick foliage in the background before I got started on my main piece. So once I finished getting a little bit of that background tree stuff in there, and I didn't do it full enough, I should have gotten more foliage back there, I started deciding to define the back side of that. Sorry that I went out of frame. Also, my first time painting outside, so forgot where I was. But I wanted to get the backside. This entire village was created as a circular series of posts in the ground. And eventually those posts would be woven with long flexible sticks but would keep people from just slipping through those posts and keep wild animals also from slipping through the posts. So I started by doing that, just getting those posts in there. And then I'm just, doing little tweaks along the way. Now, about this time, I was thinking about how primitive this was looking, and then I scolded myself a little bit and said, of course it looks primitive. This is your very first time doing this. So, it's the first time painting on location and with gouache, so I needed to give myself a break. Remember, we all need to give ourselves permission to do something bad or primitive. If we don't, we're going to procrastinate and might never start at all for fear of failure. That's one of the things that hinders us. So, anyway, I continued to kind of sketch in these huts. They were just little round huts that had a door opening in the front, but mostly were covered with some kind of frond grass. And I was just painting in, using my little wedge brush to paint in some of that equipment or storage supplies or things like that that might have been found in the village. They built little fire pits and all kinds of stuff, a drying rack for cooking on. But there were 3 main huts right there in the center, well, around the perimeter of the back side of this little village demonstration. I was using my flat brush to try to get stuff going in the right direction with the gouache. And again, I used the darkest in the back. Now, I've found out since then that with gouache, sometimes you can do that if you paint a layer that's opaque enough and thick enough and don't use any water to add to the moisture of your tube paints. You can get a more matte acrylic finish, which is what I did here. I used my liner brush to pick up a lighter color of the deep brown and just started putting in a few of the fronds of that grass or thatch that's over the top of these little huts. And it worked out quite well. I was kind of surprised for my first time. Oh, look, I figured something out. So I'm just moving from each one and experimenting. Again, I was playing as much as I could because this is the first time I've ever used the paint and the first time I'd ever painted outside. One of the things I have discovered is that taking photos outside is much less stressful and less subject to the elements. So I can tend to be sometimes an indoor mouse. And a lot of my sketches that I'm going to be sharing with you in the future will probably be done inside my studio. But I do like to make sure I'm getting out at least to take my own photos. I don't use other people's photos. Honestly, just the act of taking my own photos has taught me valuable lessons in how to get good compositions by just taking the photo correctly in a good composition, or being able to cut my photos or on the computer, cut them into a good composition once I get them home. So even just going out and taking photographs and then bringing those photographs back to your studio is helpful to train your eye to learn how to really see things when you're doing sketching. So while I am embracing getting out into the environment, into painting on location or in plein air, I also understand that I'm not going to sit in 100-degree humid weather or in pouring down rain unless I'm in a shelter to get a painting. That's when the camera comes in very handy. So I'm just continuing to add more depth to these little huts just to make sure that I have all of the depth of color. I want to make it a little more 3D, even though this is a pretty primitive little painting. It's okay. And that, friends, is when my husband and the dog got back from their walk, so I packed things up and decided to finish this at home.
So I'll see you over there. So I'm re-wetting my gouache. This little guy is my very first time ever painting with gouache and my very first time ever painting outside in plein air in a sketchbook. So it's not great, let's just say. However, I'm kind of proud of my efforts, but I have learned, and plus, we learn from our failures. So this is the photograph I took of the little huts, and I'll show you the finished piece. Here's the finished result. I decided to leave it there. Even though it's not my best work, it's certainly my very first painting outdoors and with a medium like gouache. So I even coated it with the wax kind of coating to keep it from getting destroyed or damaged in the future, because I want it as a reminder of where I started and where I'm going to get eventually. Right now, I really kind of like it. It's not that bad. I mean, look at all those little details. Yes, I'm a very illustrative sort of artist, so I'm never going to make something extremely super realistic. Even my very photorealistic stuff that I've done in pastels and acrylics in the past always turns out to have a little bit of an illustration bent for me. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little thing. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to continue with me on my journey. Remember, I'm starting here, but I'm downsizing from acrylics because my husband and I are going to be moving across the pond soon. So I would love to bring you along with me, if not in person, in video. Have a great day.